Hey, what's going on, guys? Harry here, and today I'm going to be going over an infographic that we actually made over on the Rideshare guy, and it was titled, "What's the Real Commission That Uber Takes from Its Drivers?" So a lot of you guys have been complaining about me making weird faces and weird hand gestures and stuff like that, and so I decided I'll keep myself out of today's video, but don't worry, I'll be back in the next one. So this was a infographic that one of my contributors, Christian Perea, and I worked on together, and as I said, it talks about the real commission that Uber takes from its drivers. And the reason why we created this infographic is because Uber and Lyft actually advertise a 25% commission taken from each fare, right? If you've been around for a year or two driving, you might be grandfathered in at the lower 20% commission, but for new drivers, they're actually at 25%, right? Which seems pretty high. But as we're going to show, it's actually a lot higher. And the other thing we wanted to highlight with this infographic that is, as Uber and Lyft have consistently cut fares each year, that actually means that drivers are going further than ever for the same amount of money while also increasing their expenses. And Uber's commission in these cases is actually going up as fares go down. So that's kind of one interesting thing. So first section is called lower fares equal higher commissions for Uber and Lyft. And like I said, right, Uber and Lyft, so they advertise this 25% commission taken from each ride. But when you take into account this little thing called a booking fee, that number is a lot higher. And we actually found that on minimum fare rides in San Francisco, the TNC fee for Uber was basically their whole commission was 42.75%, which is obviously a lot higher than 25%, right? So here's what we did, right? We sampled 37 actual Uber trips in San Francisco. And obviously we could have done more, but it's sort of, the point is the same whether you do 37 or 600, and you guys will see. So basically what this graph shows is your effective commission versus your total fare. Now, so this includes the booking fee, and the booking fee is supposed to be for like safety issues and stuff like that. And the booking fee is paid by the passenger and goes directly to Uber. And then the remaining amount, you actually have to pay Uber's 25% commission on, and then you get your cut. So that's why these numbers are going to be a lot higher, and we'll explain some of the math below. But basically what you can see here is that as these fares, total fares, so this is what the amount that the passenger pays is closer to $5, $10, the effective commission is pretty high, right? It's that 43%. These are all rides in San Francisco, but I guarantee your city is going to be very similar numbers, right? 43% all the way to about 37% for anything in that $5 to $10 range. And if you're an Uber driver or a Lyft driver, you probably realize a lot of your fares are in that $5 to $10 range, right? You can kind of see that out of these 37 fares, majority of them are concentrated in the $5 to $10 range. And the commission in this case, when you take into account the booking fee, is actually 43 to about 33%, which is a lot higher than that 25% advertised. As you go down and as you get further away and the fare increases, the commission starts to go down, which sort of makes sense, right? Because the booking fee is less of a factor. So over these 37 rides, the median commission was actually 39.01%, which is pretty high, right? I mean, I think a lot of people see Uber, and especially on the passenger side, and they say, oh, wow, 25% commission, that's great. But Uber's actually taking 39% of every single ride, which is a lot, right? And then when you look at the median fare over 37 rides, in this case, it was actually $8.30. And when you take into account that commission of 39%, the driver is left with $5. So $5 average take-home pay for a driver per ride, which isn't a ton. So that's just kind of these things to consider, right? We also looked at minimum fares, right? Because minimum fares are sort of the bane of existence for a lot of Uber drivers. So in Chicago, LA, Miami, and Houston, you can sort of see what the minimum fare that a passenger would pay, and then after you take out the booking fee, and booking fees can vary by city, so after you take out the booking fee and a 25% cut, this is what the driver gets. And you can kind of see that, you know, it goes all the way up to 54% commission in Chicago on a minimum fare, right? So just sort of some interesting takeaways here. 7 of the 37 rides were minimum fares, which sort of lines up with my experience. There's times and places that you can drive to sort of avoid these minimum fares, but obviously at the end of the day, you don't know where a passenger is headed, and drivers actually earn less than $10 take-home pay on 31 of the 37 trips. So this next section is called driving further for less money. Now, this is actually the distance required to earn $10 of fares after Uber cuts prices. And if you guys know, Uber loves to cut prices every year, and it actually happens to fall on my birthday, January 9th. Uber cuts these prices, so that's kind of annoying because I have to spend my time writing an article that's sort of depressing about it. But so we actually went back and we used San Francisco as an example because that's sort of where these services started. And this is a really cool graphic that I really like. In 2012, basically what this says is that in order for drivers to make $10, all they had to go was 1.13 miles. And you can actually see the prices right here, which is great, right? So basically short rides were making drivers a lot of money. And to be honest, maybe 2012, 2013, it was a little too lucrative for drivers because there are some pretty stories of people quitting good paying jobs to drive for Uber. But what this chart really shows is that now in 2013, rates get cut, right? So you can see that it goes from $3.75 a mile to $2.75 a mile. Now drivers have to go almost double the distance, right? All the way up to 2.36 miles, which is pretty far. And you can kind of see as it's progressed from 2014, 15, 16, all the way up to 2016, drivers now have to do 4 miles or even 4.71 miles on Uber Pool in order to make the same $10 that they kind of made back in 2012. So that's really kind of what we wanted to highlight. And 2012 is a little bit cheating, so we actually used 2013 that drivers only had to do 2.36 miles to make $10, and now in 2016 drivers have to travel 4.71 miles to make $10 with Uber Pool, right? And Uber announced that 50% of their rides in San Francisco are Uber Pool, so I think that's definitely an important stat. And kind of what we wanted to highlight here is that drivers are basically doing double the work, right? Double the distance to earn that same $10 in fares, and the TNCs actually get 32.6% of that $10 fare. And kind of our conclusion with all of this is that TNCs really benefit from lower prices because the number of rides that they're processing increases while they're also getting a higher portion of each fare. And obviously as drivers, you're limited in the amount of rides that you can physically process. And the big thing to take into consideration, right, is on these, right, when you're going farther, you're having to go farther, so it's taking more time to make that $10, but you're also driving double the distance, right? If you look at 2.36 miles compared to 4.71 miles, your expenses actually just doubled. So that's the big thing to take into consideration that I think Uber misses out on a lot when they talk about lowering fares, increasing demand, and things like that. And that's really one of the things we tried to highlight. And you can see right here, when fares are lowered, drivers pay the difference. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this infographic. If you guys have a site or anything like that, you want to embed this infographic on your own website, all you have to do is highlight that, copy and paste into your HTML on your website, and you can actually have this infographic and share it on your site. You have my permission. So that's the takeaway. I'll go ahead and link to this post in the show notes, but if you guys want to take a further look at this infographic, I'll definitely leave a link below. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks for watching. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Take care.